Now we're going to have a look at ginger. Ginger is one of the best anti-inflammatory herbs that we have. Probably on equal to it, especially internally, would be turmeric. And earlier in the week I talked about taking high-dose turmeric, say capsules, as an anti-inflammatory if someone has inflammation in the body. And we've had some great results with that. But what I want to show you tonight is how you can use the fresh ginger. Now you can use the fresh ginger internally and externally. Internally you can grate it on a very fine grater, and then you put it in a little teapot, pour boiling water with it, and it makes a delicious ginger tea. Now that ginger tea can be given to someone regularly if they do have inflammation. I guess the beauty of taking the turmeric capsules, you can get really high dose at once. You can also give it to a person if they're cold. Now when I was in Bali a couple of years ago, whenever you have a massage, they always give you a cup of ginger tea straight after the massage. By the taste of it, it's got a little bit of sugar in it as well, and I don't advise that. I actually think that it doesn't need sugar because it's such a sweet bitter is the ginger. Now, so internally it can be used to warm up the body, it can be used to reduce inflammation, and it can also be used to settle the stomach. If someone has nausea, upset stomach, you give them a ginger tea and it will relieve their nausea. It can be great if a woman's having morning sickness, but you might all like to know this very important point. Morning sickness is a magnesium deficiency. And some women suffer for months and months. So all they need to do is get magnesium. Take even 4 doses a day. So morning sickness is a magnesium deficiency. Meanwhile, waiting for the magnesium to kick in, which should kick in fairly quickly, you can give them some ginger tea to relieve the nausea. So that's how you can use it internally, and you can use it externally. Now where ginger is particularly helpful is in joint inflammation. Now in a minute we're going to look at another vegetable that you can use for tissue inflammation, but this is specifically joint inflammation. So this will be, say, a sore lower back. It can be arthritic pain. It can be arthritic pain or gout pain. It can be used for any inflammation in the joint area. And how you make it is you would get a cloth, or you can get a chucks, and what I do is I fold over Glad wrap a few times, and then I put that down and put the cloth on that, and then you grate it. I don't peel it. If it's dirty, you'll need to wash it, and then you grate it on a fine grater, and this is also a great way to do the ginger tea. One of my favourite recipes for breakfast, which I might have about once a week, is scrambled tofu. And I crumble up the tofu, and I've got a grater that's got a handle and then a really little grater handle, and I just put it over the saucepan and I grate the ginger and the garlic straight in. I put some turmeric, oil, salt and herbs, and it's delicious. So of course you can use ginger in all your cooking. It's great in your legume dishes. I know that Indian cooking use it a lot in their dals, and it can also help with the digestion of the legumes. But as I showed you earlier in the week, most people don't rinse their legumes enough. You've just got to remember that the water you cook the legumes in is dirty water, and that has to be washed away. So I'm just getting this grated ginger out of my grater. And I'll hold this up so you can see. So there's my grated ginger. So on such a fine grater, it's like a pulp, and you can spread it out. So you spread it out. Now I'm just saying, let's say this is for a sore lower back, and a lot of people have sore lower backs. And what we have to do is we have to listen to our body. If you're doing something and your back's a little bit sore, you've got to stop. Many backs get sore because people keep doing things when the body says stop. And a lot of people don't lift things with their thighs. You should never lift with your back. You should lift with your thighs. So if your back is straight and your knees are bent, you will lift with your thighs. So you've got to look after those backs. So what I'm going to do now, and I'll do it up here so you can see, I'm going to pull one side over and then pull the other side over. I just need a few more pairs of hands here. So what I have done is I've made a little parcel, you see that? And the area that only has one layer is the area that's going to go on the sore knee or the sore elbow or the sore wrist or the sore back. And notice when I make my poultice, I've got about 1 centimetre all the way round of plastic. And that will just help so that the moist ginger juice isn't going to soil the sheets or the clothes or whatever. And then Amelia, could you come up and I'll demonstrate on Amelia how I'll put it. Let's say Amelia has got a sore elbow. Okay? So let's say her joint here is sore. I'll put it on like this and then I'll wrap it on with a bandage. Now what will happen is if there's inflammation in that joint, now you make sure you don't have it too tight to strangle the limb, and you also don't have it too loose so that it'll fall off. It's very important that you take a lot of effort to make sure that poultice is well covered with the plastic and it's bandaged on properly, because there's no fun bandages falling off, poultices getting all through the bed. There's no fun at all. So let's say Amelia's got a sore elbow. Maybe it's bursitis, maybe it's tennis elbow. Medicine's found lots of names for sore elbows, but mostly they're inflammation. Now what you can do is you can tape that on with a bit of tape, or you might have a safety pin or those things, and that'll clip the bandage together. Now what I always do with poultices, I always ask God to bless poultices. So I'm going to give you an illustration of what I'll usually do, especially if this is a guest, and sometimes we have guests who have no belief in God, but it's very important to ask God to bless your poultice. So I'll say, do you mind if I pray for your poultice? And they usually, oh yes, they don't mind at all, see? Oh, see? And I'll say, dear Father in heaven, thank you so much for Amelia, for her elbow. Please bless this ginger poultice in Jesus' name. Amen. Do you know, I found people love you praying for them. Now, if there is inflammation in that joint, the skin is going to get very, very hot. It appears that the ginger pulls out the inflammation from the joint to the skin. And some guests have said to me, Barbara, my skin is burning. And I say, can you handle it? Because if you can handle it, thank you. If you can handle it, just keep it on all night. And some people, especially if they have arthritis, the heat feels very, very nice. One lady said it was just burning me, and I say, well, if you can endure it, keep at it, because the heat will often go up and then ease. And then it might get hot again, and then it will ease. And some people get very, very fearful, but it'll never burn the skin. It will never burn the skin. But the fact that the skin gets hot is an indication that there was a lot of inflammation in that joint. And it can feel very nice if someone has a sore lower back. And what you can do is you can actually put it on that area. It's hard, especially with us ladies, to bandage that because we've got waists and it falls up to the waist. But I find if you've got a sore lower back, you just lay on it, and often your pants can hold it in place, and just lay down on your back with your knees in the air, and the heat will come in. Now, if someone's got a sore lower back, often they'll put a hot water on their back, hot water bottle. Now, the hot water bottle brings a bit of relief, because when you're in pain, the muscles seem to go out in sympathy with your pain and they tighten. And the hot water bottle relaxes the tight muscles, and that's what feels good. But if you've got inflammation and you put a hot water bottle on it, it can increase the inflammation. But if you put a ginger poultice on a sore lower back, it'll pull the inflammation out of the joint to the skin. That heats up the whole area. The muscles relax. And of course, the joint inflammation, because it's being relieved, it is no longer sore. So it's excellent for such things. And I'll tell you a story about a man who did our program. He was a barrister from Melbourne. And in our first consultation, he's 38, he said, I'm here to stop drinking for a week, and I just want you to tell me to tell you, he said, I'm not going to stop drinking. I'm just stopping for a week. I just nodded. That's all I do, nod. I'm the scribe, and I just write it down. He was a very quiet man. And when we got to our poultice night, I talked about how the ginger poultice can relieve inflammation. And he said, I've got gout. He said, I've got one little toe that just sticks up like that. He said, I'm a barrister, I have my wig and my robes on. He said, and I have to wear slippers. It's so embarrassing. And he said, this little toe has been sore for 18 months. I nodded, as I do. I said, would you like us to try a little ginger poultice? Now, we made a tiny little ginger poultice, and we wrapped it around his little toe, and then I put a bit of plastic on, and I put a little bit of tape. This is called micropore or leucopore, and it's like a paper tape, and it's very gentle on the skin. And I said a little prayer, and he went to bed. Now, the next morning, he was coming down the hill. He's a very quiet man, and we could hear him yelling. Before he got to the health centre, he said, it's gone, it's gone. His toe was flat, and there was no pain. 18 months he'd had that problem. Now, the next day, I gave the lecture on the acid-alkaline balance, which we had last night, didn't we? And in the lecture on the acid-alkaline, it shows that alcohol is very acid-forming, as is meat. He was a high meat eater too. So in our final consultation, he said, I'm going to stop drinking. And I'm going to greatly reduce the meat, he said. All because of a little tiny ginger poultice. He had relief. He was so excited. So the ginger is great, remember, for joint inflammation. That's the best place to do it.